Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this Monday the 8th of July, 2024. Thank you for tuning in. Now, there's a lot of talk about replacing Biden because of that performance when he was debating Trump. When's it too late for them to do that? I mean, they do have a deadline here. Now, Biden is standing pat anyway, for now, right? And it says, when's it too late? Looks like August 22nd, they have to make their nomination. So up until August 22nd, I guess they can, at the DNC convention, it says they have to make their nominations public this year. It falls on August 22nd. So they're talking about other candidates here that they could possibly push out there. But anyway, that's the way that's going. It says Team Biden goes on Monday on the offensive, declaring firmly committed to staying in this race. In other words, he has no plans of dropping out right now. And you know, it's like I explained to you guys a few days ago. And I use the analogy of, where does a 1,000-pound gorilla sleep if he comes to visit at your home? Everybody sits there and scratches their head and thinks, well, where does he sleep? Where does he sleep? Does he sleep in the bed? Does he sleep in the fridge? Where does he sleep? No, he sleeps anywhere he wants to. And that's the way with the President of the United States. In fact, it's very hard to remove him. And it takes time. If he really doesn't want to go. And they do have a clause that they can use, but they're running on a limited amount of time here. They're going to have to decide and firmly decide who they want to run, whether it's Biden or somebody else, right? And it's very hard to remove him if he's a sitting president too, if he wants to run. And that's the way this is right now. You know, he wants to run. He says, I want you to know that despite all of the speculation in the press and elsewhere, I am firmly committed to staying in this race, to running the race to the end. And he says, and beating Donald Trump. I'm going to tell you what, there's a big red machine starting up here. And I'm not going to say anything, but now, in France, the left wing has won, and it's, I guess, hard left. Le Pen, I guess, is anyway. It's French left says it's ready to govern. France's left wing leader, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, says the left is ready to govern after emerging as the largest political bloc in the parliament. But the country faces a political deadlock as no party has won a clear majority. So there you go. So France elections are are done, and I guess the left, it's going left instead of right wing. Now there's stuff going on over in Ukraine. Just about a day ago, the Ukraine sent drone attacks into a large ammunition depot in Voronezh Oblast. Why do they call all their cities Oblast? I don't know. Anyway, Voronezh. They sent these attack drones in. And they scored a strike, a big strike, you know. It was massive. Ukraine's military intelligence says it set fire to an ammunition depot. And there's a state of emergency had to be declared in Russia. Because it was making, like, that cloud behind my head doesn't do it justice. I saw the footage, and it almost just... It was a massive explosion, and it was multiple explosions of all of their ammunition of the Russians blowing up. They took out a tremendous amount of Russian ammunition, evidently, at this ammunition depot in Russia's Voronezh Oblast. On June 25th, 2024, no, wait. That must be a different one. Because the one that just happened is just like within the last 48 hours. It was a huge. This must have been a different ammunition, or was it the same one? At any rate, they blew up a huge ammunition depot in Russia. Now, the response came very quickly, and the response is hit today. 36 dead in Russian missile attacks in Kiev. Hit a children's hospital right in Kiev. They're striking their missiles right dead center into Kiev. This is a response back from the Russians. Now, I mean, all this is a no-brainer, guys. Let's ask you a question. Do you believe that the Russians are just going to give up and quit? Pack it in, let's go home. You know, what if they start to run out of ammunition? Now, if the Ukrainians blow up an awful lot of Russian ammunition, that ammunition that they're blowing up in these ammunition depots is conventional ammunition. Now, the Russians got tons of unconventional ammunition. I'm actually kind of referring to nuclear. They got tons of that. But what happens if they run out of regular ammunition and the Ukraine is still attacking inside Russian territory? I mean, I'm just kind of pointing out a situation that could develop. So Russia's getting kind of desperate here because they're blowing up a lot of their ammunition. They're attacking now with rockets that could probably carry unconventional weapons or whatever. That's how close we are. Basically what I'm trying to say, I guess, is this is how close we are to perhaps some sort of a unconventional warfare beginning. We're just right at the edge. We're like 1 minute from midnight right now, for crying out loud, you know, in all of this. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, you know what? These countries, they've been doing proxy stuff, you know. The war in Russia is a proxy war. I mean, more or less. You know, yeah, the Ukrainians are doing the fighting, but how much can you call it doing the fighting when you pull out a weapon out of a crate, you set up its tripod or whatever, I can just see them reading the instructions, and then you push the red button, and that's it. You know, I mean, it's the weapons that make war in this modern age. It's not so much the men. It's not so much the manpower. It's the red button you push now. That's what warfare is descended into. And so this is not so much yes, this is still conventional when they fire these missiles at a hospital. But this is moving into the realm of the bigger, heavier missiles and stuff that can, not little drone strikes or anything like that. It just shows you the edge that we're drifting closer and closer to with this mission creep in these other countries, moving toward what? Could it be a proxy war that becomes nuclear? And, I mean, how do you fight that? You guys know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about, like, if Russia is, say, behind North Korea, and they got this pact between the two countries, defense pact, right? What if North Korea were to launch a nuke? Well, Russia didn't do it. They're like, well, we didn't do it, but that's a proxy. See? This is the way it's going nowadays. And who do you blame? Who do you attack on the other side when that missile comes firing at you? Who do you attack? Do you attack North Korea or do you attack Russia if North Korea fires a missile at you? Because it's a proxy. It makes it very unclear in the world, all these different proxy wars that are being waged. around here and there, you know. And I mean, maybe I'm generalizing a little bit, but it's more or less the situation that's going on is they're lacking direct confrontation between these major powers like China and the United States, Russia and the United States. The confrontation's not direct, it's indirect. It's more of like a proxy sort of a thing, you know, but they're still fighting. They're still using weapons made in America, and Russia's using weapons made in Russia or whatever, or getting weapons from North Korea or whatever, you know. It's like, it's almost kind of like the whole thing about passing the blame. The kids do this all the time, you know. They'll get their little sister to go in the cookie jar and get the cookies. I didn't do it. Points a finger, she did it. You know, and it's that sort of thing. You know what I mean? This is being played on a much larger scale between big players and big countries. United States troops here. Now, this is a great little map where the troops are positioned from the United States, and we see Japan is hosting a tremendous amount of United States troops. 54.8 thousand troops in Japan from the United States. 24,000 in South Korea. That's a lot, too. They got 6.6 thousand in Guam. Guam is an extremely strategic positioning point in this. Perhaps I'm going to say that between Japan, South Korea, and Guam is the most important part of the troops that are stationed, because this is their theater that they're most interested in. I read that on a show a few days ago, maybe a week or two ago. I read that on a show for you guys. Their big theater of operations that they're most interested in is that green and blue there. The 54K, the 24K, and the 6.6K. Now they have 35,000 in Germany. That's a lot. And 12,000 in Italy. That's a lot. They got 3.5 thousand in Bahrain. Well, that's interesting. So, and they got over 10,000 in the United Kingdom. But you know, Great Britain and the United States have a long relationship going back a very long way. Now, silver today, you know, it's down 9 cents at $30.97. Silver's doing good. You know, it's maintaining over $30 now. And it wasn't that long ago, it was just over $20. So it's gained, basically it's gained like a third. It's gained $10. Well, that'd be 25%, wouldn't it? What would the percentage be on that? $10 on $30 is a third. Cryptos today. Now, Bitcoin is 56,324. It looks like to me like it's had its correction. You know, it was up to $72,000 there. It touched it a couple times. Backed away. Now it's at 56,000. I would say that that it's probably, I'm just guessing here. I mean, don't go taking this to the bank or anything, but I think it's going to go back up into the 60s pretty soon. Probably within the next 2 weeks. Just saying. That's what I'm thinking. I don't think this bull rally is over. I don't think this bull rally is going to be over until we probably crest 100,000. Because I'm going to tell you guys, the Fed is out there and they are they're supporting this system behind the scenes, and they're not going to let the system collapse. And the system wants to clear out all of this malinvestment. It wants to clear out. It wants to get back to free market pricing and everything else. But that would mean, basically, we're so overextended. The system's got so much leverage in it right now that, well, the system had a lot of leverage in it back in 2008 when we had the big crisis. They've increased the amount of leverage way more now than they had back then in 2008. That's how they've supported the system all these years, is by creating more and more leverage. What is leverage? When we explain it to you, it's when they basically, a lot of it's derivatives, and when they expand something, like take a closer look at silver. They keep expanding the supply of silver with paper short contracts. They're not really silver. They're a piece of paper. I think they're 4,000 ounces on each contract, and they just create them, and they can make it look like there's a lot more silver out there, and that's leverage against the silver market. Well, they've done that all the way through the system. They've created leverage, and the expansion of credit and leverage go hand in hand together. Now, when you remove all that, what do you really got? What's the real core of the financial system? If it expunges all of that credit out that we've done for the last 40 or 50 years, what's left? It would be like over a 90% drop. Can you imagine the Dow Jones at 3,000? Everybody go bankrupt. The entire system, they're not going to let that happen. They're going to support it. And what I've noticed about the Fed now is it's not necessarily true that they're even going to tell you that they're supporting it. They could have a crisis in the background now, like they had in 2008, and you might not ever know about it, and they might fix it so quick behind the scenes. I mean, all they really have to do is push a button, and are they even going to put it in the press now, what they're doing? No, you'll just see inflation start to tear off, and you won't understand what in the heck's going on, why inflation's getting worse when the Fed says they're fighting it. It's because one hand, the hand that they show you, is a hand where they're tightening, where they're raising rates, or they're keeping rates high, and they're doing quantitative tightening too, and they're making a big display about that. Where the other hand, they're feeding the economy somehow or some way to keep it from imploding, to keep it from, but at the same time, we got in the banking system that bank lending is getting tight, and that's one of the biggest creators of money out there, and to support the general economy. So there's going to come a point here where they're going to have to loosen up there on that part of this, if they want the system to stay running. And I think they do. In fact, I know they do, because it supports them. At some point in the not too distant future, they're going to have to get that lending going again from the banks. And I'm interested in seeing exactly how they do that. So taking a look at the stock market today, we're seeing the S&P 500 is up 5 points at 5,572, and the Dow's up 23 points at 39,398. So the markets they're not really falling, but they're not really going much of anywhere either. I mean, the Dow's been hanging around 39,000 for months here. Now let's take a look at the bonds today and see what they're doing. How did I get on this page here? There we go. I had to pull down a little bit. I had a whole bunch of batteries. Anyway, taking a look right now at the bonds. The bonds are up on the long end. The U.S. 30 years risen almost 1 basis point. It's at 4.47. And it's 1.5 basis points up on the 10-year at 4.28. So it's going up a little bit today, the yields. But see, I think this would be the normal tendency for it to do right now, is for yields to rise and keep on rising. But I don't think they're going to allow that to happen if it gets too much out of control. So watching that 10-year, I think if that 10-year starts to drift up over 5%, they're going to step in somehow. 5 or 6%, they're going to step in somehow. Same way with the 30-year. I don't think they're going to let those two, the long end. They're gonna work on it, and they're going to keep the yields from getting too high. Because, honest to goodness, I mean, this is the price of money. Now, taking a look at the U.S. dollar index today, and it's going sideways today at 104.92. So not much movement in the dollar. I half expect the, well, anyway. Listen, guys, I hope you caught that show this weekend. It was about 3-body problem and 2-body problem. And just what a big problem that might be, maybe. Well, I know it's a huge problem out there. If you go to other star systems and stuff, and other solar systems. But could it be a problem? Could it be a problem for our solar system? There's evidence, but there's nothing that's there's nothing, no solid concrete proof that we can actually tangibly put our fingers on. We can, but maybe those people that own the telescopes and stuff out there, maybe they have something. The question is, would they show that to us if they did have proof of something, and maybe a planet X or something like that out there in space? Depending on how or how devastating it could be to the Earth, if they found, I'm just speculating here a little bit, but if they did find something like that out there with their big telescopes, some of them space-based telescopes, and if they spotted something headed toward the Earth, like say they spotted a big asteroid and it's heading right toward the Earth, and I mean it's a planet killer, and say it was coming 5 years from now, would they tell us? If it was an absolute certainty and it was so big that they couldn't change its trajectory, and say, I'm just speculating on this, none of this is true, I'm just putting a hypothesis before you guys, but what if they did find something out like that out there? Would they tell us? And cause huge panic? I mean, how would the people in the world react if you knew for absolute certainty, and NASA come out and said, you've only got 5 years to live, get your house in order, this is going to blow the world to pieces when it comes and hits? What if they told you something like that? How would we react? They wouldn't tell us, because they know how we would react. People that are going out there and taking college degrees and stuff, it would be pointless, because you're not even going to get your degree done before the thing would hit and blow the Earth to pieces. I mean, that's the situation. So people would throw their hands up in the air. A lot of people would say, well, I'm going to cash in all my chips and I'm going to go on a long vacation or whatever. Well, the guy that's flying your plane says he's going to do the same thing. So how are you going to get there? I mean, the whole world would just go nuts. Or something like that. If impending doom was absolute reality and a time day was set for it to happen, can you imagine how the world would respond? So I'm just saying, if there's people out there that have telescopes aimed out there, and if they do see something, well, they're going to come along and tell them, hey, you got to keep this quiet. You can't tell about this. Are you kidding? The effect this would have on the world would be off the charts. So they wouldn't let them tell. If there was, and they have a name for these events, and they know one's going to occur sooner or later on the Earth. They're called an ELE, an extinction level event. They know one's going to occur. They've occurred in the past, and they will occur in the future here to this planet. And I believe that, this is personal belief, I believe that humans, we've went through a very quiet period for the last 500 years or so. Because I'm going to tell you guys something. Vegetation and erosion here on this planet is on a scale off the charts. It's like a 10. And so when a big asteroid from space comes down and say it were to strike here in Canada, for instance, right? And leave a giant pit in the ground, an asteroid, a hole that would be maybe the size of the Grand Canyon would be blowing up from a giant asteroid hitting the Earth, okay, here in Canada. Well, that when it first happens, is all the smoke and char and a big giant enormous hole, the crater the size of the Grand Canyon and everything else. That's when it first happens. Well, you come back 10 years later, and erosion and new plants have started to grow in that area and stuff, and it makes it very difficult to see where the crater was after just 100 years. 100 years you come back and you can't even tell where the crater was. It's practically disappeared. It's very difficult to see where it was. This, if you look at the moon, take a look at the moon through your telescope and you see all those potholes in the moon, that's because they don't have so much of that problem with erosion, because they have a very weak atmosphere. They don't have that problem with erosion and plant life and everything making it disappear. It's almost like a giant eraser here on the Earth. But the moon would look just like the Earth would look just like the moon. It would be covered with craters where we've been hit over and over again through time. But erosion and stuff and plant life and stuff masks it, so you can't see it. But they are finding them. They're hard to see, and they've seen some enormous ones. I think down in the Yucatan, near the Yucatan Peninsula, there's an enormous crater. And there's one up here not far from me. It's quite a big one, you know. But they're all over. It's just that they've been kind of like an etch-a-sketch, you know, things the kids have, they tip upside down and shake it. That's what the Earth is like for disappearing these crater holes and stuff where we've been hit from space. And we've had some near misses lately, you know. Just a couple days ago, we had one that flew by that was an Earth killer. It missed us. Not by a whole lot. I think it was like 3 million miles or something it missed us by, but in space terms, that's close. In space terms, that would be the equivalent of say, a car drives by your house and a tire flies off of it. You know, I'm straying off subject matter, but that happens quite a bit. You'd be surprised how often a tire will fly off and go rolling down the highway all on its own. Well, say it flew in through your yard and missed you and flew off into the trees, into the woods, and it would have killed you if it had hit you, but say it was 50 feet away. That's the kind of a miss we just had with an Earth-killing asteroid. That kind of a miss. You know, it was in our neighborhood. Anyway, listen, guys, thank you for listening to my show. You guys have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.